fight. Grabbed an idiot. Who wants the kill? Feels so good. Talk to the hand.
Hey, what's up guys, Chris here, back into Borderlands with a brand new build, and today we're going to go over a very awesome one-click delete Amara build. This is different than the current meta, or well, kinda sort of a meta, because a lot of people are using a TDR build for most of the characters to clear the Maliwan takedown. But there's actually a lot of other builds that are super powerful and super fun, and today we're going to take a look at the one I was talking about, mainly revolving around the recursion shotgun. So yeah, let's jump in it. And if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super appreciated. Now let's get started with probably the item build, because this is way more important than the actual skill tree, though we're going to go over the skill tree in just a little bit as well. So as I was saying, the main weapon over here is going to be the recursion. You can get this from Captain Trant, and he actually drops this as a dedicated drop since the newest update, but of course you might require a few runs to get it. I believe that the drop chance is about 1%, though do not quote me on that. I believe it can drop with most of the elementals. In this case, I was looking for something that has both shock as well as corrosive, but unfortunately I didn't get that, as I was also looking for a very special anointed effect. In this case, on action skill end, weapon damage is increased by 100%, and the way you want to make this build basically is to buff up your entire damage so that the recursion becomes as powerful as possible, because it has a very interesting ability, as in when you shoot this disc out of it, it bounces between all the targets, between the walls, and even bypasses shields, and you already know how much the Maliwan takedown as well as Wotan the Invincible has in terms of shields. So this weapon is absolutely amazing, as it just randomly destroys everything in front of you, as you can probably see right now in the background footage. So that's why I aimed for the best anointed possible. In this case, it was this effect over here. Action skill and weapon damage is increased by 100%. The elemental that you're going to be looking here, especially the primary one, is going to be shock, because you're going to buff your shock damage as much as possible thanks to the other items over here that you have as well. As far as the other items go, I'm also packing a brainstormer, mainly because this is something that I'm using for healing, though it's not really necessary. You can heal yourself with the recursion as well. Brainstormer is a little bit more faster. It's also fun to look at, especially with this build, so that's why I'm packing it as well. Now let's move over to the other ones, to the shields, to the grenades, to the class modded, of course, the artifact, because these are what make your build. Now the transformer, most of you already know how it works. It converts 100% of the shock damage back into shields, so if you're dealing shock damage onto yourself, it basically heals all your shield up. Though in this case, the most important reason why I'm using this is because I have this action skill over here, which is on action skill end, gain 50% bonus cryo damage with weapons for 10 seconds, and then I also have a very similar anointed effect on my grenade. On action skill end, I gain a similar bonus, except this time around it's corrosive damage. So what this means is that when I'm using a skill, such as for example, let's say grasp, I get those bonus effects both on my weapon as well as on myself. Yeah, these two are very important to have, these action skills, because otherwise you're not going to benefit fully from this build. So these are new drops, by the way, new anointed effects that you can get in the Maliwan takedown, in the slaughter shaft. Just go ahead and farm them. Now of course, moving on to the class mod, this is the most important of them all. This is the new class mod for Amara. It drops from Celestro, which is one of the targets of opportunity on Necrodefio. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the proper bonuses over here, but it's still good for its main ability, which is Amara's gun damage is increased while moving. The quicker she moves, the greater the gun damage bonus. But the most important, whenever Amara activates her action skill, she applies her action skill elemental to herself. And finally, I'm also using an elemental projector Victory Rush. This is very important to have. You don't have to necessarily farm for the Victory Rush. You can also get something like, for example, the Auto Idol, which restores HP, but personally I went for the Victory Rush because I wanted to have that that bonus over there that reads kill a badass to trigger Victory Rush. increases movement speed and damage for 60 seconds. That's why I wanted it. But if you want healing, for example, you can go for the auto idle. The most important of them all here is of course the elemental damage boost. While suffering an elemental effect, it increases your damage with the same elemental. So if I press my grasp, as you can see on the sides of the screen over there, it applies the shock elemental onto Amara because of the class mod. And because I'm also using the victory rush, the elemental one, it also increases the damage for that elemental by 90%, in this case also shock. And here is where the shock recursion comes into play. You're going to want it to increase that shock damage to absolutely insane levels. Now if you don't happen to have these two action skills over here, the one with the cryo and the one with the corrosive or anything else of that matter, you're not going to get these bonuses applied to you with the transformer, because otherwise the transformer will absorb that damage and it won't give you that bonus onto you. And let me just demonstrate that as well with a different transformer that I have, as well as a different recurring hex. So now if I apply that same effect onto me, as you can see, it does give me the elemental effect onto me, but I'm not damaged anymore and my speed doesn't increase anymore. So no matter how much I activate it, the speed is not going to work on my character because I'm not getting that bonus damage, the one that gives you action skill cryo damage. It also applies these two, so if you can stack two different elementals, it's going to take both of them into account. I was talking about the build, so let's jump in the build and talk about it a little bit. Of course, the main one over here is going to be the Fist of the Elements, mainly because some of the skills over here at the end of it, but I'm going to go over the entirety of it and why you'll want to pick it. In the beginning, of course, Anima is also very important for the status effect, damage increase 20% and also duration 100%, so you can apply a ton of buffs or well debuffs onto the enemy, weapon handling so that I can control the recursion a little bit better, also Tempest for the increased 30% elemental damage and also shock damage 20%, so these directly benefit your build. I also went in with the Dread, even though I didn't 100% require it, mainly because if I do happen to grasp an enemy, which is something that I don't want, actually I want to miss them so that I can use it over and over again, but if I do happen to do that, it increases my gun damage by 15%. I also picked 2 points into Wildfire so that I can further go down the tree, but it also helps me to better spread that status effect, which in this case is going to be cryo, corrosive, as well as shock. Then I went in with Deep Well for the magazine size increase by 20% for elemental weapons, and this is where the most important of them all begin, the Indiscriminate. This is very powerful, absolutely insane. Amara's bullets that damage enemies have a chance to ricochet and deal decreased damage to other nearby enemies. The recursion already has ricochet in it, and I also get the bonus ricochet from that, and as you probably already saw from the footage I was showing to you, yeah, this makes all of these bullets and all the ricochet bullets to ricochet again and again between the targets, which creates this absolutely insane mess of destruction. Of course, also got the sustainment full 5 out of 5 into it, just so that I can regenerate as much of my HP as possible by dealing elemental damage. And since your recursion is basically all elemental damage, yeah, you're gonna get a ton of healing from that, and you might even not need to use your Brainstormer unless you're like 100% guaranteed to die. And finally, of course, we also got the Forceful Expression, bonus elemental damage based on the action skill elemental, which in this case is the shock elemental, as I was saying. Now, as far as the rest of the skill trees goes, this is a matter of preference, but I found that putting some points into Brawl helped me a lot with that survivability, especially the Helping Hands and the Mindfulness. These two block a ton of damage. Unfortunately, my class mod doesn't benefit my Helping Hands too much because it doesn't give me any bonuses to that. Instead, it gives me 2 bonus points into Clarity, which isn't really that bad, but honestly, if you're hunting for something, hunt for something that gives you like 3 points or 2 points into Helping Hands, as well as 2 or 3 into Mindfulness. These are the best 2 you can get over here, but to get to them, I've invested some points into the Personal Space. This also directly benefits the build. Amara's weapon shots deal bonus damage based on the distance to the target. The closer the target, the greater the bonus. So if you were to have a target, let's say over there, you would run as fast as possible to it and then shoot it when you were just right close to it to benefit both from the class mod as well as from that ability over there. Otherwise, even if you stay still, you're still going to see a huge amount of damage just because you have that victory rush with the elemental damage on it. And finally, we also have some points into the mystical assault as well. I'm getting rush from both applying status effect, which I'm doing all the time, as well as killing enemies, which again I'm doing all the time, so 1 point into each. I didn't see a reason to put more points into these because, well, I'm killing everything fast, applying fast dots. I finally went with the Transcend, especially for the critical hit damage, definitely very helpful. Accuracy also helped with the recursion, even though it does have a very good accuracy, it does help to have even a lot more. So before even beginning combat and even during combat, you'll want to activate your Phase Grasp. This is the main ability that you're going to want to use, mainly because if you miss this ability, if you don't take any targets into it, it's going to reset and it will let you activate it again. So when going into the fights, try to activate it while looking at the ground. This is going to ensure that you don't hit any of the enemies and that you can spam it over and over again to keep the buffs going on. As far as damage goes, aim for big groups of enemies. The bigger the groups of enemies, the higher the chances are they will all die into one single shot. That is why in one of the footage I showed, Wotan died so fast because I shot both his lower and his upper half at the same time, so that projectile bounced between them and the upper half even died in one shot. That's how crazy it was, but the same goes with the groups of enemies as well. But yeah, this has been pretty much it with the build. Let me know down below what build are you currently using for your class or character to clear Mayhem 4 Maliwan Takedown. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super appreciated. Also subscribe and activate the notification bell, and I'll see you guys later.